All right, welcome everybody to another episode of If You Give a Data podcast. I am very excited to be here to do this episode today. I have a really interesting guest with me. I kind of reached out to him a few months ago and we got this nailed down to where we could have him on the show. He is a musician and a business owner. To be honest, this guy does a lot of different stuff. He's also a former on-air personality for iHeart Radio. He is the founder of Big Lick Entertainment, which is also part of Big Lick Comic Con. And then I believe there's another one called Big Lick Comic Con Nova as well. And then he's also a writer for Boom Studios. He is one of the writers for the Power Rangers Across the Grid Anthology 1. He's also a restaurant owner. I am talking about JD Sutphin. Man, how are you doing tonight?
Fantastic, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I am very excited to do this. Like I said just a second ago, you're a busy dude. And I don't know how you keep up with doing everything the way that you do, because you are in music, you're doing all kinds of different stuff, which I just found your band. And I
Oh,
got to
sweet.
say, I really like that sound, man.
Oh,
You guys
thanks, man.
sound
I
awesome.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll kind
Yeah.
of just get
Oh, go ahead.
so we'll kind of just get started here. The first thing that I found on you was that you worked with iHeartRadio. How did
Yeah.
you get into that?
It's a funny long story, but I was 19 years old. I decided that I didn't want to work like in like my family business, which was like antiques and collectibles and stuff like
Okay.
that. My grandfather owned like a flea market back in the 50s and stuff
Oh
like
wow.
that. And I was randomly at an Allman Brothers concert and walked outside and ran into a radio DJ that was with the morning show. And I'd been a few months without a job, not knowing what I was going to do, and my mom asking, "So when are you going to start working?" And I literally, like in this crazy moment, was like, "Man, it'd be really cool to be a radio DJ because I love music. I'd already been in bands because I was
Yeah.
fresh out of high school and stuff like that." And I literally just said, "Like, so you're Steve from 96.3, right?" And that was the radio station. He's like, "Yeah," he's all rough and. It's like, I'd love to, are you guys hiring? Yeah, I'd love to work with a radio station. He goes, and he's like, look at me up and down. He's like, we're looking for interns. Really? Because I
Okay.
literally asked him like 2 weeks after a brand new boss came in at that station. And usually when that happens, there's a lot of hiring and stuff like that for new positions or whatever may happen and like
Right.
changeover and stuff. And literally that was a Tuesday.
Hmm.
And by Friday, I was an intern on the night show.
Wow.
And I was at that radio station every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for 3 years,
Wow.
and worked my way up to my first full-time position there and then on from there. And I mean, it was grueling hours and very low pay.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely awesome. I wouldn't
Yeah.
trade it for anything, man. It was such a great experience.
That's really cool. And that you were saying how it's very low pay and everything. Everybody sees, these people on the radio and they're like, oh man, they probably are just killing it. But it's really not, it's more of a passion than it is anything.
And thankfully, I was one of those people that a few years into being there, I was like, trying to afford my apartment and all that kind of stuff, which now when I look back to what my rent was like in
Yeah.
the early 2000s, like I was out of my mind to think that, that was expensive. My rent
Yeah.
was like $395 a month. It
Oh,
was insane. This
wow.
was like circa 2004 or three or something like that.
Yeah.
But I started telling the other bosses and stuff there that like, hey, I'm not afraid to take on as many things as possible. So
Right.
I started becoming a marketing director while I was the music director. So I was scheduling the music, but doing marketing. And
Okay.
then when I'm doing the marketing part, I was like, well, if I'm doing the marketing, I'd really like to be involved in sales. So I
Hmm.
became a salesperson.
Wow.
So because I was like, if I'm writing these proposals for these people, why am I not making commission off of it? And
Yeah.
I was willing to put the work in. And because of that, I really got to work my way up.
Wow.
And thankfully had some bosses that were willing to take the risk out on me. And I screwed up plenty of times, but they gave me a break and I got to make a living. And it was a blast.
Which one did you prefer doing when it came to, did you prefer the marketing or did you like the sales side of stuff or?
So the sales stuff was really grueling, like
Okay.
very much so. And
Yeah.
like I'm not a salesman by nature,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I don't know how to like close,
Yeah.
the deal. So that was not for me. But I was lucky that like the sales manager was so forgiving and like wanted to teach everybody that was, working there and stuff. So I was very, very fortunate. And
Right.
thankfully, I was selling a rock and roll radio station.
Yeah.
So it's like, dude, have you ever heard of Led Zeppelin? Let's talk about this. They're awesome. We play them, you
Yeah.
should sponsor this thing that we're doing.
Right. So you did that for, I believe, I read 10 years as
Yeah,
that
yep,
you were with
decade.
them. So what was it that made you decide, you know what, I'm done with this. I would like to move on and try something else.
So, in the midst of that, I had my little cousin
Okay.
who was, my younger cousin got murdered in a bar fight that he had nothing to do with.
Oh no. Okay.
And he stopped a fight, like got in between two guys,
Yeah.
and he got killed. And it wrecked me. It wrecked me
Yeah.
something fierce. And one of those bosses that wasn't the one that really took a lot of chances out on me and stuff like that, verbatim, when I call him and say, "Hey, I need some time off this week," we were in our ratings period. That's when, it's like
Yeah.
sweeps for
Yeah.
TV.
Yeah.
And he's like, "JD, I'm sorry, I can't let you have time off. It's not your immediate family. It's my cousin, who was like a
Wow.
little brother to me."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I verbatim said some words that I won't repeat, which was go
Yep. Yep.
yourself.
Yep.
And when I came, and I came back in, I showed up the next day, and I
Yeah.
was like, "I'm gonna figure out a way for me to leave, guys. Like
Right.
the clock's ticking."
Yeah.
Because I'd been there so long and felt so disrespected. And I was like, "I'm going to start my own company." I had no idea what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And I went to this conference that was kind of like a TED Talks kind of thing for tourism and growth in the community. And after I saw this speech about tourism, I went back to the radio station and I quit
Wow.
with
Okay.
no plan. And I started Big Lick Entertainment within a few weeks,
Okay.
and which is my main company, and that's where we put on Comic-Con
Yeah.
and do fundraisers for nonprofits and charity.
Yeah.
We do marketing for people, and the Comic-Con, I mean, completely changed my life because I mean, I grew up on comics. It
Right.
was everything to me as a kid. I only play music because it was in my family, but I would listen to like Metallica and rock and roll and heavy metal
Yeah.
while drawing comic books.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I just happened to be a lot better at playing guitar than I was drawing comics. So I started staying in that lane because it was like my goals were way too high. I was obsessed with Alex Ross, and like it took me a while to realize there'll only ever be one. So I am
Yeah.
not going to be the next Alex Ross.
So you said that you grew up around music.
Yeah.
Kind of the similar situation with me. I grew up. I'm a pastor's son, so
Mhm.
music was in my blood. It's
Oh, that's awesome.
something that's always been a big part for me. Something that I found, and you're an you're a artist in multiple different ways. You said that you were drawing comic books and stuff like that as well. I still find this to this day. Music's therapeutic, and it helps you to get through some things.
Yeah.
Is that something that you like to use as your medium, or what medium do you like to use to kind of when you're having a bad day or something
Oh,
like
it was
that?
everything. I mean, like my former band that hasn't been together now for about a decade was a
Hmm.
band called Their Own. And the last album that we did, the entire album was about my cousin. I mean, like front to back.
Okay. Okay.
And it was so therapeutic, but actually in the end of that band, it became hard to sing some of those songs
Right.
because I was healing.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
higher power
Yeah.
was helping me, my family was helping me. And
Yeah.
then you go back to these songs where it's like, good gosh, there's some dark lyrics on here. And like, you're like, man, I don't want to wrestle with this anymore. And I needed to like take a break from it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
step back.
Definitely.
And that's been the really fun thing over the past couple of years of getting back into like writing stories and realizing that like writing comics or working on film and things like that, it's the exact same muscle that heals you
Right.
as playing guitar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same thing, you
Yeah.
know?
Right. Yeah. So when it comes to the name of your entertainment business, Big Lick,
Yeah.
where does that come from?
The really fun thing is that so in Roanoke, everyone knows Big Lick because that is the original name of the city. Is Big
Oh,
is Big Lick, Virginia. And it's a
okay.
Native American name. I have a ton of Native American in my family. And I
Yeah.
always thought it was really cool. And my whole thought was like, I wanted to be a real active part of the community. We've raised tons of money for charity since we started in
Hmm.
2000. We've done so many different countless music festivals and beer and wine events and stuff like that, where we give almost either all of the money of those
Yeah.
events go to
Yeah.
charity or a
Okay.
minimum of 51%. And my thought was like, when you're doing those kinds of things in the community, it's sometimes better to take a step back to
Yeah.
have perspective.
Right.
So why not do it a throwback instead of like, Roanoke Entertainment? It's
Hmm.
Big Lick Entertainment.
Yeah.
And then it was fun because like, especially when we started the con in Northern Virginia, right
Okay.
outside DC, which is Nova. So of course,
Okay.
Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
People were like, what is your con called? Big Lick? And the
Yeah.
thing has been really fun, like the actors and like the like agents and stuff. They're like, and your con's what? Like they think it's the funniest thing ever. And they're like, why is it something to do with the Rolling Stones? Like the big kiss? Like, they
Oh,
had no idea.
okay. Yeah.
And I've explained it to him, and I actually was really self-conscious about when we launched it in that market of like, do I need to change the name? Because people are going to go, what the hell's a Big Lick
Yeah.
Comic-Con? But it's who we are. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
the name of my comic shop that I own with my brother. So
I like
it
that.
it stuck.
That's awesome. Well, I
Yeah.
know when I saw them on Instagram, like they started you started following me on there, and I was like, what the heck is that? And so I
Which is
had to go
good. That's
look
what
it
you want
up.
people to ask, like,
Yeah.
instead of like generic Comic Con name, which
Yeah.
I think so many great Comic Con names that have already been taken.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I think the name Galaxy Con is just brilliant to me. It sounds awesome. It sounds
Yeah.
just ambiguous enough, like
Yeah.
really, really cool. But yeah, we just stuck with Big Lick because that's who we are.
Well, yeah, the one that I went to this year, or one of the ones I went to this year was Nerds Assemble Con.
That's
And
awesome.
it's
Yeah.
so cool,
Yeah.
but you're right, it's really cool to see all the different unique names and stuff and how the people come up with them too, because I
Absolutely.
mean it's a cool thing. I've just started, this is my first year actually being a guest at different cons and stuff, and so it's
Oh,
been
that's awesome.
really
Yeah.
really cool to kind of go to these different ones and learn more about them. I got to go to one called PTX, which was in Paris, Texas. Got to see the Eiffel Tower
What?
with the
Nice.
cowboy hat on top, and everything. So I love
Oh,
going to
that's
these
rad.
events. Yeah. So going back into one part of this, you said that it's the entertainment side. How far were you into the entertainment side of this before you decided, let's do a convention, and then when did you decide to come up with the second one?
Yeah. So, we had been doing events for almost 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking about Comic Cons because, again, I mean, I grew up reading comic books. My brother and I, like our entire childhood, all we wanted to do was work in comics. That
Right,
was
right.
everything to us, man.
Yeah.
To be 10 years old and having a gas station down the street from our house during the time that X-Men #1, Spider-Man with Todd McFarlane,
Yeah.
Spawn,
Yeah.
and that the death of Superman, all in that 3, 4, 5 year,
Right.
frame
Yeah.
of being a young kid was unbelievable. And I wanted to be established as an entertainment company to where I knew that I could do it right
Yeah.
and do something that had our own kind of vibe.
Right.
And vibe is an intangible,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Because there are so many cons and there's people that have massive budgets, but like what you feel in that room is
Yeah.
the thing that is the hardest thing to achieve.
Yes.
And we had a really great team, and we do have an incredible team now that's even bigger than it was there then. And it was like, man, it'd be really, really cool. And I had all these deep conversations with a really great friend of mine that puts on Magic the Gathering events all
Oh,
over the country,
wow.
Star City Games.
Okay.
And he was massively helpful and influential in like helping me think about what we should do for like the first one and how do we make our mark of it being like our kind of con.
Yeah.
And it worked, man. And we really wanted to make sure that we were doing, or excuse me, having guests that we liked
Right.
personally,
Yeah.
because it needs to feel curated.
Yeah. Definitely.
Just like a chef needs to cook what he wants to eat
Right.
because it's going
Yeah.
to taste better.
Exactly.
And the first one that we did was in 2017, and I was so nervous because we had like literally 123 pre-sales. And
Oh.
I'm like, I'm going to lose my butt on this event. No
Yeah.
one's going to show up. And there's like, however many vendors were there, dozens of them and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my God, no one's going to show up. And then 2,000 people walked through the door
Oh,
that
wow.
day for the first one.
That's cool.
And like, it was like, oh God, thank God, it was a sight to behold. And it's thankfully, grown since then. And it feels like a family reunion, every
Yeah.
time we do it.
Yeah. That's cool. So you were saying that, it's always been a dream to be in comics. And I know, like I said at the beginning, you're working with Boom, and I think you're close to the
Yep.
same age as me. And so you probably grew
Oh,
up
sweet.
with Power Rangers and things like that as well in your
Oh, yeah.
childhood.
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
what was it like starting this process and starting to write with Boom Comics and then realizing that, oh, well, I'm going to get to work on, a project like Power Rangers, because I mean, that's got to be,
Well,
kind of a dream as well.
yeah, it is unbelievably surreal to be November the 19th when we're talking about this today,
Hmm.
and it be the anniversary of my childhood hero
Yeah. Yeah.
leaving this plane of existence for another.
Right.
Because the Power Rangers, man, like that was everything for me when I got out of school. I
Right.
was a kid that did not fit in.
Hmm.
I was the kid listening to heavy metal and everybody else is listening to Travis Tritt, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, wearing a Ride the Lightning shirt when everyone else is wearing, like polo shirts and khakis. I didn't
Right.
fit in, you
Right.
know.
Right.
But when I got off the bus and ran up the hill into my house and Fox Kids was on and they got a
Hmm.
French bread pizza and a Capri Sun and you're 11 years old and the Power Rangers is rolling on, man,
Heck
these are
yeah.
my best friends
Yep.
who
Yep.
have and that's the thing that was like, I think people forget the escapism that we had as kids watching the Power Rangers. Sometimes we were imagining having those friends,
Yeah.
not
Exactly.
just imagining morphing into a superhero.
Right.
That
Yeah.
is just as much the frame of mind that those kids need
Yeah.
of every background, because there was a ranger for all of us, you
Right.
know?
Oh yeah.
And it meant the world to me, man. And what was so crazy is it was our second con or third con that we had Jason Font from Time Force, which I
Okay.
loved Time Force. I thought it was so well written.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know this. Font had a really great time at the con and
Hmm.
gives Jason David Frank, the OG, my Green Ranger, my White Ranger,
Yeah.
my phone number.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
I know that.
Yeah.
And he tells Jay, hey, had a really good time in Roanoke. You should hit up JD. And randomly, I know this is a really long story, but you have to know just how much the Rangers mean to me, man. Um,
Fine. Yeah.
I get a phone call. Randomly, I'm in my office, and it's a FaceTime from a Texas number. I'm like, what is
Yeah. Yeah.
what is that? I'm like, I'm gonna answer it. Let's see. No one, because no one ever FaceTimed me.
Right. Right.
Flick it. It is Jason David Frank, who's randomly at a gas station taking a break from
Wow.
driving,
Yeah.
saying, "Hey man, Font gave me your phone number. It's my name's Jason David Frank. You might know who I am." And I'm literally like, "What?" like, I can't imagine what my face looked like into the
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like losing it.
Yeah.
And he was so cool, and he couldn't do the con that was coming up, like the upcoming one,
Right.
but he could do the other one a full year later,
Okay.
right? And I'm like, dude, I'll take a con 3 years from now to have you come visit and come to Roto, bro. Whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
can we have lunch? You know how does this work? And what was so wild is we book it and stuff like that. He then would just send me like text messages, and he would send me voice messages, not
Oh
text
wow.
messages, like
Yeah.
voice recordings. He was like, "Hey, bro, think about the con. Let me know when you're gonna announce. What are you up to today?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Hey, Jason, David Frank, I'm just thinking, like I didn't know
Yeah.
I'm flipping out." And because I mean, I just gotten into the world of Comic Cons and like trying to stay cool when you're meeting someone like Sean Astin and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and not being like, "You're the Goonies made my life."
Right.
But what was great, we had the best time. We really, really connected, and we stayed friends. And then he was like, "Dude, your town likes Rangers, and I can tell that you like Rangers. I'm going to tell them all to start calling you."
That's cool.
And every single person that I have had come in
Yeah.
to my cons from the Ranger world since then has been from a personal basis.
That's cool.
Like Kat emailing me,
Yeah.
then Kat saying, "Hey, Nakia should come,"
Yeah.
because that's her best friend in the world. Kat and
Right.
Nakia, of course,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
multiple seasons. And so rewind a couple of years ago, and I do my Nova event, and Kat and Nakia come. I meet Nakia for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and we just clicked. It was a big like family dinner kind of thing that I do on Saturday nights at the con, where all the guests come and a bunch of my staff and stuff like that. And we were talking about marketing and what Big Lick did for a lot of different companies and stuff like that. And she's like, you know what? She's like, I've been looking for someone like to maybe to run like my Instagram page and help me out with all my social media and stuff like that. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I would love to help with something like that, because I've
Yeah.
always thought that I always loved watching her and Kat together, because they just seem like such genuine people that
Right.
love their fans. And I'm like, why would I not want to be friends with these people? Not
Right.
just like
Right.
all business associates and stuff like that. Well, then, so Nikki and I stayed in touch, and literally like within the following week after that con, which was super successful,
Yeah.
we started talking about like goals and things that we were working on. And I'm like, Nakia, I'm a storyteller. Like I'm a songwriter, but
Yeah.
I want to tell stories, because she was working on a movie.
Okay.
And she's like, I've been trying to find somebody to, to work on my productions. I need like a writing partner. I need a person to help get the productions done from
Mm-hmm.
that organizational point of view. And I had a lot of infrastructure to help make that happen. And within a few weeks of meeting, we started a brand new company that we called Von Baris,
Wow.
because her last name Baris and my
Yeah.
last name, the original pronunciation before they came to America, was Von Zutphin. So it sounded
Okay.
like, yeah, sounds funny. But we did it. And then we started immediately writing. And in the midst of writing some original stories,
Mm-hmm.
I told her, I was like, the stuff that we're writing feels very comic booky, feels right in our realm. We need to write a comic.
Yeah.
And the stuff that we were working on, I was already very comic booky. I was like, but well, before we release something all brand new and original, why don't we hit up Boom and pitch them an idea for Rangers?
Yeah.
She's like, sure. And she knew who to hit up,
Right.
which was Misty, or excuse me, I'm sorry, Melissa Flores,
Uh-huh.
uh, an unbelievable, legendary comic book writer, and what she's done with Power Rangers is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Sorry, I misspoke on her name, but she hit her up, and she's like, "I'll set up a meeting with one of the editors."
Wow.
And we did, and we had the pitch, and they immediately said yes. And it was January of last year, and went to work. And they were at first we thought it was going to be like a full comic, but then it ended up being an anthology with multiple
Yeah.
writers. That was even cooler for me,
Yeah.
and even more of a challenge in a good way of having to condense our story to 8 pages.
Yes. Yeah.
And since then, we're now working on multiple comic projects that really just picked up. Our comic dropped October 30th. It's called Across the Morphin Grid, and it's a Power Rangers anthology. It has multiple different writers. Our story is called Tanya's Heavy Metal Rescue.
Oh, that sounds cool. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's
And I'm
really
a
cool.
I'm a heavy metal kind of guy. Like I said, listen to
Yeah.
Metallica
Yeah.
and all that. And I loved the Zeo season. It was literally one of my favorite seasons. I thought the suits were awesome.
Yeah.
I love the idea of Zeo crystals and what they're capable of as a power set.
Right.
Um, and we dove right in, and like it was such a cool process working with their editors.
Right.
It was absolutely awesome.
Yeah. I think that Zio is probably my favorite out of all of them.
Yeah.
In fact, my wife got me the set, so I can always have it and everything.
Nice.
But
Yeah.
Zio, because I mean, I grew up on the original,
Yeah.
and but that change when they went from Mighty Morphin to Zio, it was
Right.
something new and it was amazing. And like you said, I loved the way the suits looked,
Yeah.
and it was so, even though it was a story that I knew, it was something new in there, to
Totally.
where I could, I was moving along with them and they were,
Right.
evolving with me as a person.
Totally. And it kept growing up with us as I'm
Right.
41 years old. So like,
Yeah.
it was for that age, frame, it was
Yeah,
everything.
for sure. So I know that you said that you're working on some other comic book projects, and one that I ran across was the Never Never Kids.
Yeah.
Can you kind of explain what that is and tell me a little bit about it?
I can't say too much
Okay.
about it yet, because we've only dropped one little teaser.
Okay.
But it is set in the 90s.
All right. Good
It
time.
is these inseparable lifelong kids that have some pretty out of this world experiences happen to them. And the thing that is really interesting and cool from our point of view, at least looking at the story, is that they're having these massive life changes. I
Yeah.
mean, at the same time that an intergalactic threat is coming to Earth.
Right.
It's going to be really fun.
Yeah, from what I've seen, because you've made multiple posts,
Yep.
about it and everything. So I am definitely looking forward to seeing that come
Thank
out
you.
here soon. When it comes to the Vaughn, you say, is it Beerus?
Von Baris.
Baris, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So Vaughn Baris, I know that there's been different movies that have come out of there and TV shows as well, correct?
So we've been in the process with that. So Nakia
Okay,
has her new movie that's just won an award at the Burbank Film Festival. That
nice.
is almost semi-autobiographical
Uh-huh.
of her becoming. She was a teacher after Power Rangers.
Really? Okay.
Really, really cool. Really,
That is cool.
it's really neat, an inspirational story, and it should be available to finally, view for regular audiences.
Right.
It'll be out next year.
Okay.
Um, and my phone probably just, if you heard the ding, that was actually a text from Nakia. That's funny. She like psychic powers that we didn't know about. Yeah, the movie is absolutely awesome, and we've been developing multiple TV shows. That hopefully will be seeing the light of day very, very soon.
Okay, okay. When it comes to your writing style, and this can go for music or it can go for when you're writing for, TV shows or anything, or even Boom Comics, where do you draw inspiration? Where is there somebody that you look at and say, I want to pattern myself after their style?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so when it comes to music, my favorite writers, like, hands down, James Hetfield, Metallica, is
Okay.
just
Yeah.
the be all to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But I'm also still a huge Adam Jones fan, who is the guitar player of Tool.
Okay.
But I'm also a massive Johnny Cash fan.
Yeah.
I really musically really listen to a lot of really random stuff. I love the Smashing Pumpkins, big 90s rock,
Yeah.
fan.
Yeah.
Um, but then when it comes to comic books, Mark Waid is a guy that just, I mean, I have the special edition graphic right here next to me when I'm
Oh, that's
writing
cool.
Kingdom
Yeah.
Come, because that
Yeah.
just book is everything to me.
Yeah.
Um, there's too many writers to list, but it's one of those things that I think about cinema a lot when it comes to writing comics,
Okay.
because I like thinking about this, like the actual image of it itself. And I
Right.
love the fact that like you get to be like the director of photography and the screenwriter at the same and director at the same time,
Yeah.
knowing though that with the right artist, they get to just take it to another level. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I know that another thing when it comes to comic books, and then on the side of movie creating, they're similar in a lot of ways because
Absolutely.
you've got your story that you're coming up with, and they have storyboard artists even.
Mhm. Yep.
I had a guy on the show, Kevin Mellon, who actually was the director of Hit Monkey on
Oh,
Hulu.
wow. Yeah.
And he was talking about, starting out as like a storyboard artist. And he did that for, lots of different shows on CW. And the
Wow.
similarities between that and then making a comic book script are, uh, that's about as close as you can get.
Yes. And it's surprising to me that there are not more people that aren't just jumping in and out of those genres,
Yeah.
because they're so identical.
Right.
But I was reading this really cool interview with Alan Moore where he was talking about how you have to say more with so much less in a
Yeah.
comic, and how he never wanted Watchmen to even be filmed,
Yeah.
because he wanted it to be like, no, this is this scene to this one and that one, and
Right.
that's it. And the rest is up to your imagination.
Yeah.
And I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer to
No.
that.
No.
But I guess the thing with me that, I mean, what's so cool though is when I think about reading those books, I still go back to that, like what it felt like when you were a kid, of like, what can you not say? And that's so identical to writing music,
Yeah.
because you're like, dude, at some point the guitar solo's got to stop and you got to get back to the chorus.
Right.
So
Right.
like you got to self-edit and go with your heart, but you cannot overindulge either. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah.
that balancing act.
Yeah. So, kind of going into music, because I'm a big music guy. I love talking about it. And you're a metalhead I'm the same way. I love my metal music. And now I know you've talked a lot about like Metallica and things like that. Are there any of the newer bands that you are seeing now that you're really liking when it comes to metal music?
Um, what's the metal music? No, I'm like so old school when it comes to my metal that I'm not listening to a lot of newer stuff, unfortunately. I
I got
probably
you.
should. I need people to give me recommendations. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I,
Yeah.
I I have one band, and I ask people about this one, especially when I find out that they like metal.
Mhm.
And I just want to know how they feel about this one because it's one of those bands where either you love them or you hate them.
Yeah.
Sleep Token. Have you ever heard of them?
So actually, that's so crazy because one of my greatest friends, and she's on the team with Big Lit Comic Con,
Uh-huh.
has seen them live like multiple times and
Really?
keeps telling me to listen to them, and I have
Yeah.
not yet. And it drives her nuts when I'm like, I still haven't done. I'm so sorry. Like to the point that I just want to like hand her my iPhone and be like, just put it on my iTunes, and I'll listen to it on the way to work tomorrow because I live like 30 minutes from my office, so it's plenty of time to rock out on
Nice,
the
nice.
way there.
Well, maybe this is your sign that you should
Yeah,
maybe listen to
totally. I'm
them.
literally
So
gonna write that down. Like, I'm gonna download like an album like right now on my phone. That's
I
awesome.
I love their stuff, especially their newest album,
Really?
is really good. It's not like any other genre that you would, you know,
I
they put it
just
in the metal
downloaded
genre. There you go.
it.
Yeah, that's
It's
the good
on
one.
there.
So it's not like any other metal band that you would listen to. And in
Oh,
fact, a
that's
lot of
awesome.
people don't like to even call them metal, but
Oh,
it is an
wow.
experience. The
Yeah,
whole album is, some of their songs are like 8, 9, 10 minutes long,
I love that.
and you're like, you start out at one point, and by the
Yeah.
end of the song, you're like, wait, am I still even listening to the same song? Because they have a whole experience when you're listening to it.
You ever listen to Between the Buried and Me?
No, uh-uh.
North
Who is that
Carolina.
again?
Between the Buried and Me, or a
Between the
lot of people call them BT Bam.
Okay, okay,
North Carolina, very proggy, screaming and singing, synth, uh,
okay. I wrote them down.
literally like 29 guitar riffs in one song,
Okay, all right. I like it.
all
Yeah.
over the place.
Okay, I'll give them a listen. I wrote
Yeah.
it down on my notebook here. I have to keep a notebook in front of me, otherwise I forget half of what I'm going to ask.
All good.
I remember when I first started doing this show, I had somebody on, and I was like 20 minutes into the interview, and I was like, "Oh my god, I can't remember anything that I was going to say."
That's
So,
awesome.
so I just keep this in front of me now. So
Oh,
it's
that's
good to
great.
have that.
Yeah, totally.
When it comes to running the conventions, what would you say has been one of the hardest things to get that going?
Um, you don't want to second guess yourself, and that can be really tough. Of like when we were talking about curating, and
Hmm.
you want to be like, well, like I want to be really excited about the people that I'm booking.
Right.
And
Yeah.
like, you don't sometimes want to be everything to everyone. Like you need to have an opinion and be like, no, man, I want to have like people from this and this and this because I love that. And I'm going to be able to sell that when I'm
Yeah.
telling people how excited I am also to see them. And it's like, that's that balancing act of like wanting to do something for everybody, but then still wanting to have an identity as a con.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I would love to have 150 comic book guests there
Yeah.
if I could afford it, to have all of them on site.
Yeah.
But you still also like had a wonderful discussion with a gentleman in our comic book shop today about how important it is to get kids into comics.
Yes.
Think
Yeah.
about who are writing books that kids want to read.
Yeah.
And when I think about that with the con of like, what can I do to always make it as family friendly as possible so
Yeah.
that mom and dad or whoever the guardian is goes like, I'm gonna bring the kids to the Comic Con and they're gonna
Right.
fall in love with stories like
Yeah.
Rangers, just like we did.
Right. Right. Yeah. Being a parent, when my kids started saying, "Hey, I want to go," to a convention, that was it can be a bonding moment even for the parents at that time too. And
100%.
so I love the fact that my kids have been like, "Well, are we going to go this year?" And the cool thing is I have one that's about 10 minutes from my house,
Wow.
and so it's been really cool to be
Yeah.
able to because I'll take them and then they'll get tired,
Yeah.
take them home, go
Yeah.
right back up there.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome. You can't beat that.
No, and I've actually been able to because of that convention is the reason why I was able to start getting some different people on this podcast, because
And that's the thing I've seen. Go ahead, sorry.
the one thing I've learned from doing this is you never know until you ask. The worst they can do
Yep.
is say no.
Absolutely. And like I've seen so many businesses and experiences happen
Mm-hmm.
by proxy from our con
Yeah.
where someone gets like, well, no, I'm gonna do art more than I was
Yeah.
before because like
Yeah.
they had a really killer weekend and people really supported them at the con. Or
Yeah.
like, I mean, even one of our employees went on to now be an assistant to a major comic book creator
That's cool.
that they met helping them at our con.
Yeah.
And like that's huge to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I met my wife at a show that my band was playing.
Oh,
So if
that's
I had
cool.
not been in the arts community, in the music community,
Yeah.
I met the love of my life and got a 9-year-old. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Been married
Definitely.
15 years. That's
Yeah.
rad.
Wow.
It wouldn't happen if it wasn't for guitar.
Yeah.
You know?
So I have a secondary job and I work with a local comic book company out of Little Rock, Arkansas.
Oh, wow.
And I do their marketing and stuff like that for them.
What?
And they
Nice.
are, we have just funded our fifth comic book, actually, through Kickstarter. And
That's
so
amazing.
just being able to get, because of that local convention, that's where I met them at, became friends, conventions, they bring you together, man. And
Oh, yeah.
I just, I'm so excited every time I get to go to those.
Well, and people don't think about with those cons of like there are like chamber of commerce
Mm-hmm.
groups
Yeah.
that don't get that many small businesses together that a Comic Con does. Because every
Right.
single one of
Yeah.
those artists and vendors and Funko Pop dealers
Mm-hmm.
or sketch artists and painters are all in one spot.
Right.
And the biggest or even smallest cons, and there could be 150 different small businesses right there that are
Yeah.
making a living on something they actually care about.
Right. Yeah.
That's insane what that's doing for the quality of life of our country.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean,
while we're there enjoying it, like what?
exactly.
In person,
Well, and then you get to meet all these cool people too.
Totally. I got to do a TV interview to promote the con, which was so fortunate that we have great media in our area that want to
Yeah.
support the con and talk about it.
That's cool.
And it was a couple of years ago. They were like, well, what's the quickest way that you could describe what Comic Con is? I was like, imagine going to the Super Bowl of creativity.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're meeting the team and the coach and the owner.
Yeah.
And all the players.
Right.
They're there. Like, oh, here's Walt Simonson and there's Chris Hemsworth. Everything they did with Thor is like, wow,
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can have them both together in the same spot.
Right.
Like, just crazy.
Yeah. I mean, nowhere else are you going to be able to find something like that. And I know that it goes even beyond that because there's conventions for just about anything that you're into.
Absolutely.
You've got
Yep.
horror conventions, you've got
Yeah.
comic book conventions,
Yep.
all different kinds of things. There's one I went to this year that it was Disney themed, even, and
That's
they
awesome.
had like Ariel, the voice of Ariel was there,
Yeah.
and Prince Eric and all
I'm a
these
massive Disney
people.
fan, so like that's
Are you okay?
Oh yeah, dude. Disney World, like I am a 7-year-old child when I'm there. Just it chills me out and makes me excited at the same time. It's weird.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So going back into Power Rangers just a little bit here, because I know you do have that that just came out, the anthology.
Yeah.
What are some stories when you were growing up in Power Rangers that kind of stuck out to you?
I mean, clearly the number one would be when the Green Ranger was introduced.
Right.
And it was like, so there's an evil Ranger and he is wrecking our friends. Like,
Yeah.
what was it, like 4 or 5 episodes, 3 episodes, something like that.
Something
and I mean,
like that. Yeah.
before they got a handle on it. I love the way they introduced Kat because she was the villain to start with.
She was. Yeah.
Really enjoyed how they transitioned into Zeo. I thought that was really cool and really organic because even as a kid, when we lost the original 3 Rangers and switched to the other, I was like, why are they not showing their faces?
Yeah.
But of course, I didn't know that they weren't actually filming that scene.
Right.
I loved how they brought Tommy back when he was, Professor Tommy.
Yeah.
Gosh, that was 6 or 7 seasons in, 8 seasons in.
Yeah.
I really liked Ninja Steel a lot. I thought those were really, really well written. I thought the music was great. I thought the actors did an incredible job on that season.
Yeah.
Love Time Force, love Space.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I've watched every single season, man. It's
Well, I mean, so I kind of got out of it for a minute, and then doing this show is actually what got me back into it.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
part of a podcasting network called the Zio to Hero podcast.
What?
And
That's
so,
awesome.
oh yeah. And so they've actually gotten, if you look behind me, you can see toys
Yeah,
all over the place back over here. And they've gotten me into the collecting toys and all those different
that's
things.
fantastic. I'm really
And
excited for those new Zeo toys that are about to drop too.
yeah, yeah, those are going
I
to be
think this
really
is the
cool.
Super 7 ones, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Super
Yeah.
7, I
Yeah.
believe. Is that the one where they actually have the fabric?
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
Always
yeah.
awesome. Like my
That's
son just got the McFarlane 66 Batman.
really
And
okay.
I love the fact that my 9-year-old was excited for an Adam West toy. So I'm like, dude, yes.
Yeah,
Because like I had the a tape that I had taped the Batman movie, like the 66 Batman and Robin movie, off of
yeah,
like CBS on a Saturday at 1 o'clock. That was my
yeah.
version of it when I was like 9.
Right.
But he thought that toy was so cool. And the funniest thing was when he opened the box, he's like, he has a cloth cape, Daddy. And thought that was so cool because like, but that's quintessential like toy 101. Make something feel tangible and different so that when you get it out of a box, you're even more excited about it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yes, definitely. I still get excited about my toys, man.
Yeah,
And
dude, they're all
it's
behind me
funny.
right now.
My mom actually, it's getting close to the holidays and those stuff. And
Yeah.
she's like, "Well, what do you want?" And so I just sent her like my Amazon list, and she was like, "Are you sure that's not one of the kids' Amazon lists? Because that's all
That's
toys." It's like,
dude, you
no,
live
it's
once,
mine.
man.
So yeah.
Yeah. This is your journey, okay?
Exactly.
They ask you what you wanted.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So I found a list when I was researching you, and I wanted to congratulate you on this. And that is the 40 under 40 with the Roanoker that you
Oh
are
man,
actually
thank
a
you.
part of. That's really cool.
Oh, I
Um,
appreciate that.
how did that go? Did they just come and interview you, or how did you get involved into that?
It was like an email out of the blue at like a Wednesday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon that I immediately forwarded to my mom. I was like, look what I got. You know, screw you, Dad. I made something of myself. You know. No, it was totally random and wild. And then at the same time, you're like, oh man, I'm almost 40, you know, at the same
Yeah,
time. And now
yeah,
I'm 41, so it's been a few years since it came out.
yeah,
But man, it was so cool. And the thing that was neat was like all these other people on there that um made me feel really less accomplished, but very proud to be in the same, issue as them.
yeah.
And it was this magazine called the Roanoker magazine that has been around for 50 plus years.
Really? Okay.
So
Wow,
cool for like
that is
local
cool.
print media, and they still are like really doing great things for the community too, because they
Hmm.
spot like all these local businesses that are busting their butt to stay
Right,
open,
right.
and they shine a light on that. So
That's
the
really
fact that
cool.
like they tipped my hat
Yeah,
was like it was just awesome. It was very humbling.
yeah, yeah. There's another side to this. And like I said at the beginning, you do everything, man. You are a busy guy. And
ADD is what that is.
ADD. All right.
Yeah.
So this is kind of uh, I have multiple parts to this question, but the first is you have a restaurant as well, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Called Six and Sky.
Yep.
So you're in the restaurant business too.
Yep. So it's me and one of my best friends that
Okay.
we've been friends with since my very first radio broadcast. I met him. It was like,
That's cool.
like the radio station would be like live doing like,
Yeah.
I was at a cell phone place and he worked there, and that's how we became friends.
Oh, wow.
Like
Wow.
when I was 19 years old. And what was so neat was I had been working with this nonprofit in downtown Roanoke. They're called Center in the Square. They're
Okay.
a 40-year-old nonprofit that has like a science museum and a pinball museum, like a
Wow.
can an aquarium kind of thing on the first floor. It's a beautiful place, and it's all for like charity,
Yeah.
like all of it.
That's cool.
Are they're all like nonprofit organizations, and they had this beautiful space on the roof that was kind of an event space, but not totally finished out. And they had told me like, "Hey, yeah, we're looking for a restaurant to come in here." And crazy me, I'm like, "Well, I hit up a friend of mine and we found this like restaurant management group that I've been doing some work with as well. That was one of our clients.
Hmm.
And 2 years later, the place opened up, and it's been a really, really cool experience. And we have an incredible team that's there.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a beautiful spot too, man, because it's a rooftop restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're really excited about the fact that like we pay our rent to a charitable organization
Yeah.
that helps a
Right.
theater, that helps was education for kids, that does
Right.
field trips, all this stuff. It was a really cool thing, man.
That's really
And the
cool.
food is killer.
What do you recommend?
So it's a seafood restaurant. The
I like
signature
seafood.
dish is a red snapper that is covered in crawfish and on top of cheesy grits.
That sounds
It
amazing.
is wild because it's like a fish version of like shrimp and grits.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Very like Creole,
Hmm.
Charleston, South Carolina meets New Orleans kind of thing.
Yeah,
Really, really cool. But I have
yeah.
to say, my personal favorite though, our burger is ridiculous.
Okay. I'm a
I'm a
big burger
cheeseburger.
guy,
I'm a
so yeah.
simple dude. You know, man. You can give me burgers and French fries and a chocolate milkshake, and I'm like,
Heck
I'm all
yeah,
set.
yeah. Just the American meal there, man.
Yeah,
I'm big cheeseburger guy myself
same.
too. So yeah,
Once a week at least. Yeah.
once a week. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, switching over to your music again. I know we're kind of all over the place on this, but do you prefer to play acoustic or electric when it comes to guitar? Because I see you've got some guitars back there behind you.
Yeah. It really depends on the, I mean, because I'm the singer in the band.
Okay.
So like I can say that when it comes to singing, I prefer acoustic because after so many years of playing, I'm like, I don't know if I can really hear everyone right now because it's the volume level starting to go down naturally.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
can,
Yeah.
but electric guitar is just way more fun to play.
Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you're singing and you really want to sing it, you know, and get into the vocal aspect of it, then the acoustic's hard to beat.
Yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to Low Low Chariot, your band, when did you guys start and how did you get that name?
So we started in 2014.
Okay.
The band is named after my mom's father. I never got to meet him.
Okay.
He died in 1974 after playing a country music festival.
Oh.
Got hit by a car.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
4th of July, 1974, 44 years old. That is his guitar
That's cool.
that he had packed up that day,
Yeah.
that he bought when my mother was born.
Yeah.
And his single was Swing Low, Sweet Chariot.
Okay. Okay.
And which is a hymnal, but he did a bluegrass version of it.
Yeah.
And I always thought the song was so awesome. I was like, well, what if we did like a play off of that song title as the name of the band as a tribute to him? And his last name was Freeman, so his name was Jim Freeman. My
Uh-huh.
son's middle name is Freeman because
Oh,
my
cool.
grandfather never had any boys. It was a way to kind of like, you know, tip our hat to him and keep his name, you
Yeah,
know, going.
exactly. That's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
cool.
Yep.
Do you like bluegrass?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
There's actually
well, I'm a metalhead. It's fast. You know?
it makes
Like, dude,
sense.
it
Yeah.
works. Yeah.
So there's actually a band up around well, it's I think they're in North Carolina and they're probably my favorite bluegrass band. And I found them out of the blue. Have you ever heard of Balsam Range?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I
that's killer.
man, I haven't found a song of theirs that I don't like. They're one of those bands that's very versatile in their
Yeah.
way of playing. They have a more modern sound to them, or they
Oh,
can go
nice.
back into the bluegrass that I grew up hearing. With Ricky Skaggs even and stuff
Dude,
too. So
that's so there's a music festival up here called Floyd Fest. And
okay.
what's so cool is they'll have someone like Government Mule or Black Crows playing, but then
Hmm.
they'll have two other stages throughout this 4-day event that'll literally have 60 different bluegrass style bands playing.
That's cool.
And I think bluegrass is so cool because not only could any of those musicians know the songs that the other people are playing or be able to play with them,
Right.
but it's also like if you have the guts to play bluegrass,
Yeah.
you better have your chops.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like
Definitely.
and both of those guitars, I inherited them. And when my grandmother gave me this guitar, she gave it to me when I was 16 years old on the
Okay.
anniversary of my grandfather's death
Oh
on
wow.
4th of July, and I wrote my first song that night that changed
That's
my life.
cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Have you ever been to I'm in the Northwest Arkansas area. We have something really cool here in Branson, Missouri, called Silver Dollar City, and they have a bluegrass festival there every
Wow.
year, and it's
Yeah.
bluegrass and barbecue. Have you ever been to Silver
No,
Dollar
I've heard
City?
of it, and like that's a pretty fantastic marriage of
Yeah, oh,
of,
definitely.
of fun right there too, man. That's
Oh
awesome.
yeah. You just hear music everywhere while you're there, and then
Oh, that's
everywhere you
rad.
turn, there's amazing food. I mean,
Well,
there's always amazing food there, though. So
yeah, well, when I was a kid, so my grandmother booked bluegrass musicians the first of every month, at the venue where we do Comic-Con.
Oh, really? Okay, that's
There
really
was a
cool.
performing arts theater that's next to the convention center. And that's first Saturday every month, she'd have all these bluegrass bands playing, and she would at the backstage always had like the best smelling food on the planet. It was always filled with like tons of KFC buckets and like
Yeah.
all this different stuff and like as much sweet tea as you could possibly imagine,
Oh,
you know.
yeah.
And when I'm like 7, I'm completely like out of my mind with the amount of tea and Rice Krispie treats and stuff that I've had at the back, you know. So like when I hear bluegrass, I can smell that chicken.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Good memories, being able to
Yeah,
look back at that.
for sure.
Um, so we're kind of coming up close to a close here. I have a couple more questions I would like to ask you before I get you
Yeah.
off of here. Do you have any goals set for this next year?
So, obviously for Never Never Kids to come out, this is something that Nakia and I are putting a lot of work into this. We were working on issue number 1,
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
And, my hope and my prayer is that that first issue, catches on to where people want to read more of them. Because
Right.
I know as a comic book person that like, you got one shot at issue number 1.
Yeah.
You better grab some
Yeah.
people with the story with that first one. And honestly, I have a personal goal of writing a lot more music.
Okay. Okay. And I'd love to hear it. Are you talking about with the band, or do you have solo projects that you work on as well?
So that's my big goal. Like my son is playing drums now, so like there's
Oh,
always a drum set now set up in the basement.
yeah.
And my wife and I are like, we need to set up like some recording stuff down here because I want him to be able to just create, like
Yeah.
hit the iPad down there or something like that and play along
Yeah.
to stuff. Like he was playing along with Sabbath True
Yeah.
the other day. And he was
Wow.
wailing. So I would love to be able to actually like make music on my own here because I've spent a fortune throughout my life going to studios. And I'm like, I've got to figure out how to just do this myself at
Yeah.
my house. I can't afford it to keep going to these like tracking studios and stuff like that. So I would love my goal that we haven't like talked about like publicly, but I want to write music to all the comics that we're writing because I
Oh,
think it's
cool.
so fun to drop soundtracks,
Yeah.
whether it's instrumental or has words to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Be
Yeah.
like, hey, if you got the comic, this music's free, dude. This is
Yeah.
on us. Listen to that while you're reading it. Let us know. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
not do everything that we can to make it a cooler experience?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So there's a podcast that I found, and they kind of mix the show with the comic books, and it's the Power Rangers audio series or audio
Yeah.
drama. Have you listened to any of that?
No, and I need to. My brother was actually just talking about that at the shop like Saturday.
Hmm.
And because some people were asking him at the shop about it, and I haven't had a chance to check it
Yeah.
out yet.
Well, they just finished up the Mighty Morphin part of it, and they've just
Oh, wow.
transferred over to it being the Zeo. And they've got, I think, maybe one episode out that kind of explains Zeo and where it comes from
Oh,
and
that's rad.
everything. So it's really cool. I definitely recommend it.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
That's
So
really
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Sweet.
When it comes to starting a business, what is a piece of advice that you wish that you would have received whenever you first started?
Not to take on too many things at one time. It is always the hardest. You don't want to say no to anybody. And I messed up plenty of times by
Yeah,
not being either prepared
yeah,
or having enough time in the day to just execute what it was I was trying to do.
right, right.
Yeah. You gotta save time for yourself. You gotta save time to give yourself perspective,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And you gotta have somebody that you can vent to about all the things that you go through.
yeah.
Yep.
That's definitely important to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was your favorite comic growing up?
Probably, man, so many. I was enamored with the death and reign of Superman.
Okay, okay, yeah, that was a good
It
one.
was just so like you didn't know if he was going to come back or not. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But then when Kingdom Come dropped, floored me.
Hmm.
I bought the first 20 issues at least in a row of Spawn.
Okay.
I couldn't get, I was like, I couldn't believe that a comic could be dark. I didn't know that. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
I'm some kid from, Botetourt County, Virginia, man. Like you didn't think that kind of stuff could happen. The Claremont X-Men stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't go to the comic shops as much because we lived outside of the city.
Mm-hmm.
So what would end up happening, we would go to like these like flea markets and antique shops and stuff like that. And I started realizing that if I pick up annuals,
Yeah.
that I don't need the next issue. And I didn't need the issue before it.
Right.
They were self-contained stories. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when you're just like, 9, 10 years old and you only got like $4 or $5 in your pocket,
Right. Yeah.
but I can get like 3 Captain America annuals for that $4.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the beginning, middle, and end of all these stories now. It was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have anything coming up that maybe you want to talk about before I get you off of here?
So our next Comic-Con is February 1st and 2nd. It's Big Lit Comic-Con in Roanoke. We're doing a 1987 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reunion. So I've got all 4 Turtles and April O'Neil.
Okay.
Sergeant Slaughter. We got Bulk and Skull that's coming to this one.
Awesome.
It is going to be an absolute blast. Got Michael Cudlitz that was in Walking Dead that plays Lex Luthor in the new Superman and Lois.
Okay.
Really something for everybody. We have some awesome comic creators that are going to be there too. Larry Hama, Fabian Nicieza, the co-creator of Deadpool.
Okay.
It's going to be an absolute blast.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yep. So if people want to follow you or they want to follow the convention, how can they do that?
So just at Big Lit Comic Con or at JD Sutphin.
All right, man. Well, it's been wonderful talking to you tonight. I really enjoyed this. I am going to talk to you for a few more minutes after we end the recording and everything. But thank you so much for being on here. This has been a ton of fun, man.
Thank you so much, friend.
If You Give a Dad a Podcast.